Okay, we are live.
All right, we're reconvening our afternoon hearing and introduce hearing from Representative Page on H-113, an act relating to lakes in crisis and requirements for designation.
Thank you, Chair. This bill is not the first time that you've seen it. I've introduced it, at least once before. And it basically is requesting two things, well, maybe three. One is to designate Lake Memphremagog a lake in crisis. The second one is to change the way we name lakes in crisis by there's a criteria in which you have to lose property value in order for the lake to be changed. And for that to happen, say Lake Champlain or to Lake Memphremagog, that's never going to happen no matter how much the lake deteriorates. I mean, it would really have to be really, really bad before that ever would happen. And I just don't see it. And the third thing I would ask is that if you do declare Memphremagog a lake in crisis, that you request more monies to help in keeping Memphremagog clean and getting rid of some of the invasive species. I think there's a number of agencies around the lake that do a very good job of trying to keep phosphorus out of the lake and try to help municipalities maintain the quality of the water quality in Memphremagog, and they should not be hampered in their work. But I would ask that more monies be directed towards Memphremagog in that process. And that's basically the bill.
Thank you. Do members have questions? I'm wondering, have any lakes been declared lakes in crisis?
Yes, there is one.
Irma?
Yes. And, a great deal of money I believe, has gone into it with limited success.
And do you work with you have a lot of co-sponsors or sponsors with you on this, but do the folks around Lake Memphremagog, you think, would they support this?
I believe they would. There probably is some hesitancy to declare Memphremagog a lake in crisis because it perhaps has a negative connotation. Why is it in crisis? Basically, I'm just looking at the invasive species of the white perch versus the yellow perch that are native there. Some of the other aquatic plants that are in the lake, that sort of thing. Your real estate agents perhaps might take exception to this, but I haven't heard anything from them. And I haven't reached out to them. The only ones that have reached out to me in the past are some of the conservation groups, afraid that they would be losing some of their funding they use to help protect the lake. And that is not my goal here.
Your goal is to actually attract more funding.
Absolutely.
And they would be losing it because of?
Well, perhaps their funding would be limited and go elsewhere. I'm just surmising.
Any further questions? Oh, Representative Bartholomew.
Does anyone know why real estate value is a criterion in existing law?
It was added. After that, I think this lake in crisis bill went through, got added, and maybe even on the floor. Not sure why. I don't remember.
Perhaps there are other lakes that might be considered a lake in crisis, and this was one way in which to limit those designations in the future.
More of a statement. Memphremagog is subject to the watershed from the Clyde River, the Barton River, Black River, all of which in the springtime swell and produce a great deal more flow into the lake. A lot of people think the lake is severely compromised, especially after 2 weeks of warm weather in July, August. And you see cyanobacteria and other algae that has nothing to do with the true pollution of the lake. That's seasonal, it's climactic, and it goes away. The other issue that the lake is beginning to be aware of, zebra mussels. That's an invasive species, whether we like it or not. That comes from boats that come from other tunnels. So I would really like to strengthen that. I think the declaration of the lake in crisis will help several organizations that are environmental, that in nature, and aquatic protective groups for the environment get access to grants and other fundings, not necessarily state, but probably some federal dollars, USDA, etc.
We also just had a conversation with, about, our waste management at Casella, the landfill. It's located right along the river. And adding on to what Representative Labor just said, all our rivers and streams flow north into Memphremagog. So the rivers run north to Memphremagog and further up into Quebec as well.
And that's the prime source of the drinking water for 175,000 people.
Yeah.
We should do our best to keep it clean for our own tourism and for our own property values.
Yeah, that's another good point. That lake is a big draw for tourism, boating, fishing. We recently, a couple weekends ago, we just had a big fishing tournament there on Memphremagog. If you look back on the history of Memphremagog, it used to be a big salmon lake. Not so much anymore. So yeah, it's a draw. It's a draw to the municipality of Newport and other surrounding areas for tourism.
Thank you for,
Well,
yes.
thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Next up, we have a couple of bills from our own Rob North. You are welcome to take the seat down there.
Assume Nazi.
This is a different view of the table than what I'm used to. Thank you, Chair Sheldon, for allowing me to take the hot seat and introduce a couple of bills that I put forth this session. My name is Rob North. I am representative from Ferrisburgh, representing the greater Vergennes area, Vergennes, Ferrisburgh, Panton, Addison, Waltham, and New Haven. The bills that I put forth, and I got two of them here, so we'll go through them in numerical order, starting with H-157. Both are in short form, so there's not a whole lot of detail. So we're really just going to be doing an introduction of the concept with the idea that then we would kind of flesh out the details together. 157, H-157, is really a bill with the intent of increasing or enabling rural housing development. Is really what it's all about. And there are two parts to this bill that are somewhat unrelated to one another. I threw them both in the same bill, though, because they both have the same purpose of working toward enabling development in rural communities. And so the first part proposes to expand the Tier 1A and Tier 1B concepts to towns that have approved zoning laws, and an approved town plan with their regional planning commission or RPC, and have access to town sewer and water, or as Tier 1A and B says in the most recent bill passed last session, Act 181, has what's called appropriate soils, which allow septic systems and drilling for water available. So, and the bill proposes to offer towns which would be about 150 towns in Vermont meet those criteria, offer them the ability to declare themselves Tier 1A and 1B in the areas where they would like that to apply based on their town plan, for a time period up to December, for like a 4-year time period through 2029. So it offers the rural towns in Vermont the same opportunities that some of the bigger cities currently enjoy with this Tier 1A and 1B designation to help some of the smaller towns, like my little town of Ferrisburg, to work on say a town center area, which I know our town planners would love to do. But it doesn't obligate the towns to be Tier 1A and 1B. Some of the smaller towns feel like, well, I'd rather actually have the state's help working through Act 250 than do it all myself. But if you've got a big developer coming in who knows what they're doing, they are certainly able to do that. So that's the first part of the bill. The second part is something that I brought up with Councilor O'Grady when he was here, because we heard him testify, as I had been previously warned, that the wastewater permitting process within ANR is set up and was changed within the past decade or so, such that it is more of a certification of private engineers to do the work of wastewater permitting, as opposed to ANR itself and the personnel within ANR itself going out and doing the permitting and the design of the wastewater systems. So instead, the ANR wastewater permitting division is transitioned into a training and certification body that has developed a set of rules that trained engineers must follow and work to. And then the ANR then oversees those engineers with those certifications and checks up on their work on an annual basis. And if those engineers are not doing a good job, they'll revoke their certification. So that engineer would lose his professional certification, lose the ability to do that kind of business. And my understanding is that this transition from ANR doing the certification to them, from ANR doing the permitting directly to delegating that authority to certified engineers and being the certification of the authority for the engineers themselves, has been a raging success and allowed the number of personnel within ANR to decrease significantly. I don't know what the exact percentage is, but there's significantly fewer human resources within ANR managing wastewater permitting now, to the point where they were able to disperse those folks to other activities. And it also builds then the expertise within the private sector. These engineers can go out, do their own work, be certified to do their own work, and certify their own work, or permit their own work. So I would like to see that raging success be brought over to the stormwater permitting process. My experience as an Act 250 commissioner alternate in Addison County has indicated that the most difficult parts about getting through the Act 250 permitting process are the wastewater and stormwater. Wastewater, not so much anymore. Now it's stormwater is a real struggle to get through. And in fact, I'm aware of at least 2 developers that essentially gave up on the process in our area just because they couldn't get through the process. So I would like to see this success that worked really well with wastewater applied to just this delegation to private engineers, that certification concept applied in the stormwater area like it had been in the wastewater area. So this is an encouragement to them to do that. So that's, I realize, two rather disparate concepts crammed into this same bill, but under the umbrella of enabling development. So that's all. So. So it helps people by reducing our taxes, by having fewer employees in A&R managing stormwater. It reduces the cost to developers by reducing the time and increasing the predictability of when you'll get your permit. And it improves jobs in the private sector of engineering folks and careers in that arena, private sector. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, the wastewater program's been operating in a similar manner for decades with wastewater design people certified out there in the world, and you still do need to get a wastewater permit.
Correct.
So I'm not sure what the change was that happened 10 years ago, other than I do know we reduced the number of employees in there. I think the same number of people, or fewer people are doing the same amount of work, if
Right.
more work. So I don't know that, I'm not sure about, I think the staff are probably struggling there. So I don't know exactly how we would dig into that one, but, and then on the earlier one, I guess I'd be curious to know, you mentioned your own town. Has Ferrisburg ever pursued designations? I mean, there's no, if you say they've been hungry for this, the path towards, I don't know, increasing kind of development in our urban areas, what places we would like growth, has been open for a long time. And so I don't know how many towns you think would be captured by the proposal, and whether or not they already have designated. Many towns have village centers already designated. They already have a path forward in this way.
They have village centers, but they still don't yet, my understanding is, don't yet qualify as tier 1A or 1B. They're still in the tier 2 bracket.
But they could pursue it.
I guess that's a good question. I don't know if they can pursue it or not right now. I was under the understanding that they couldn't, but maybe that's not the case.
Members have other questions? Representative Austin.
Just help me understand the difference. It would seem to me wastewater would be much more difficult to certify than stormwater. So help me understand why that isn't a great idea, the stormwater
I think Rob thinks it is a great idea.
certification.
Could you ask your question again? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't, what's the opposition to stormwater, having someone like an engineer?
Having it delegated. In other words,
Yes.
Having the A&R operate as a delegation authority, delegating the permitting activity to private engineers and just themselves being the people who provide the certification for those engineers to do
I
that.
would think wastewater would be much more complicated, to do. So it seems stormwater would be easier, and I don't understand.
Yeah,
I think there would be a lot of questions.
yeah.
Yeah, but there probably were with wastewater too, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure it says delegated as,
As easy to delegate,
no, I just think that there's still wastewater permits that need to be issued. It's not a complete, like, the agency is still issuing wastewater permits. So it's not, and we've heard testimony in the 3 acre that engineers are designing, that's what they're doing. They're designing these stormwater projects, and then you get a stormwater permit. So it's a parallel process. It is a newer process.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's what's
Yeah, thank
proposed
you.
there. Sounds like we could do some more investigation to find out how things actually are operating within A&R.
Another bill.
Okay, so moving on to 162. This one's a little more straightforward, and in fact, directly related to some of the testimony that we've heard this past week. And this is H 162, is basically just a repeal of the 3 acre rule. And so the thought here is, just as we've heard over this past week, 677 properties, which is kind of less than 4% of the Vermont property owners, are impacted by this rule. that the number 3, which is expressed in the statute, 3 acres of impervious surface, though it's indicated that that's not really an arbitrary it kind of is arbitrary in a sense, because as was testified to us, if you are 2.99 acres, you don't have to meet it, but you're 3.01, you do have to meet it. So it's a line that was picked. We could have picked 3.1, we could have picked, any number, but 3 was picked as a nice round number to meet some TMDL value that we're looking to achieve. But even in the which I thought is a very handy set of Q&A or FAQ, frequently asked questions about 3 acre sites from A&R. Says 3 acre was determined to be an appropriate area threshold that would avoid both overshooting and undershooting the pollutant reductions. So it was just kind of a picked number, but it's not like 3.000 there's anything special about it. The cost to remediate, we heard last week, is roughly $70,000 per impervious acre. And that was an estimate before COVID. Now it's more like $100,000 per impervious acre. And I'm still waiting on exact numbers that I asked Neil Kamen for last week. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. Now he's out of the office this week. The total potential phosphorus reduction that we're looking for to accomplish via the 3 acre rule was answered last week as 1.7 metric tons or 1,700 kilograms. And of the 213 metric tons, that represents 0.8% of the total TMDL for Lake Champlain that we're trying to achieve. So a very tiny little slice of that pie that we saw, agriculture and riverbank erosion and forestry being the much larger slices of that pie. So we're looking at accomplishing 0.8% of our total TMDL using the 3 acre rule. If the average cost of each of these 677 properties is $100K, and I'm just picking that number based on some of the testimony that we have heard, it could be different than that. Some are way more, some are a little less, but not much less. So if we pick that, I think a relatively low end number of $100K per, that gives us a total cost for the 677 properties of $67.7 million. And if you just divide that by the 1,700 kilograms that we're trying to pull out of Lake Champlain on an annual basis, that's $40,000 per kilogram. And that's a low end number. That's the low end number. So this is by far the most expensive form of lake remediation that we have heard testimony thus far. And it significantly adversely impact all of that cost is dumped on this relatively few people. This less than 4% of Vermont property owners. So it seems a rather, unfair way and very expensive way of going about remediation of lake. So I would propose we pick some different targets rather than this one. That's my justification for the bill.
Thank you.
Any
For
questions?
targets, I mean, so where would you make up the difference?
Yeah, I showed you the picture on my cell phone. Let's go look at where Dead Creek flows into Otter Creek. The whole Dead Creek Basin, always just, you look at it from the air, just Google map Dead Creek on your phone and put it into a satellite view, and it just looks like chocolate milk. And you can just see the cloud flowing into Otter Creek. So, I mean, any slight, tiny little bit of help there would certainly accomplish 1,700 kilograms of improvement. So pretty much anywhere else would likely accomplish 1,700 kilograms of remediation.
Members have questions? Representative Pritchard and then Morris.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to discuss this. I think we have to discuss this 3 acre thing. I think it's doing a lot of harm to people. And setting the TDML stuff aside. And the other thing, quite frankly, is where does this balloon to? You know, we listened to the testimony from Richmond. She's non-compliant. They're compliant. What's that all about? When do they become non-compliant? And where does this go to? Where do the tentacles start going out to? And is this really this is a state water solution we're trying to do? Why are we holding 677 individuals responsible for that?
I appreciate your perspective, but I'm wondering if you have a question.
No, I wanted to make a statement, I guess.
Representative Morris.
Surprisingly, my question is very similar to Representative Pritchard's. Representative North, I was just curious, we took the testimony last week from the Richmond property, and the woman that submitted testimony, and she had 3 acres, and the various properties in the same development were under that, so they didn't have to have the permit. So I'm wondering, that community or that development overall may be 25 acres or more. What are your thoughts are on how we would remediate that stormwater reduction for the development
Yeah, I
as
think-
opposed to micromanaging by property?
Yeah. My recollection is the total number of impervious acres in her development was like 10.4, so 10 and a half. 10 and a half impervious acres. The other properties nearby her were not unpermitted because they were less than 3 acres. They were just not meeting other triggers that the 3 acre rule brings into play. It's before or after the 2002 date, or just being, I don't know, orphaned or not owned or whatever the other triggers are. I guess what I would suggest is that one of the things that I think would be interesting is to evaluate the three or more contiguous acres of development would trigger the rule, rather than just 3 acres of impervious surface in total. In other words, a little roof here, a little roof there, a little roof here, a little, if you get, 10 little roofs and their associated driveways all added up, you might just break the three impervious acres. And maybe that's not such a big deal because they're all surrounded by their own yards and grass and everything else. But if somebody's in an area and they're gonna pave 3 acres of a parking lot, yeah, okay, I'd want to see the 3 acre rule applied to a paved parking lot. Because that's one contiguous, all sheeting off. That makes sense to me. So maybe just the wording a little bit different, that it would have to be 3 contiguous acres of impervious surface. But those are certainly things we could work on together as a committee if we took this up.
More questions? Representative Austin?
Yeah, are you thinking about cost sharing, like expanding who would be paying for it? Like why isn't everybody in the state of Vermont paying for this?
That
Is that-
might be another way to handle it as well, as, or maybe, yeah,
Mhm.
right. Look, kind of like they were doing in South Burlington. I think there was just as part of the overall property tax in South Burlington, every house, every property got charged $90 or something like that, and that the town of South Burlington took on the remediation
Mhm.
for the whole town. Yeah, there's other ways of dealing with it.
Great, thank you. Members, that completes our agenda schedule for the day. Mind you that this is when you find yourself with free time, it's a good time to revisit the topics and questions you had from the previous testimony that we've taken.
I forgot to mention 2 things about those 2 bills is that they're bipartisan. But the bills are sponsored by at least one Republican, or at least one Democrat. Both of them.
Great.
Thanks. State that for the record.
Right.